Hello, families. Welcome to join to this virtual mini academy with our excellent, topic tonight on getting close to summer and when the kids are out. Tonight we have the team of Humor Pediatrics. We have Mr. Ty Riedebook, Fisher and Assistant on Humor Pediatrics. We have Miss Noel Sismore and Dr. Nick Paulos. For tonight, I will be, helping them sharing the presentation. Let me share my screen. Let me know if you can see my screen with a thumbs up. Yeah, we'll be passing this to Mr. Ty to start with this presentation.
Hello, families. Welcome. My name is Ty. As we said, I'm a physician assistant. Dr. Polis and Noel Sizemore is our nurse, and we're the pediatric slash trauma team at Nemours Children's Hospital in Lake Nona. So tonight's talk is going to be entitled "Why Your Child Needs to Wear a Helmet: Pediatric Head and Neck Trauma." We're going to talk about the importance of kids wearing a helmet while they're riding their bikes and scooters, the reasons why they should do that, and some of the consequences that could happen if they do not. Next slide. This course is designed for you as parents to learn about head and neck trauma in kids. The goal is to educate you on the dangers of using motorized bikes and scooters without a helmet. And we hope to use, tonight I'm going to use the terms motorized bike and scooter interchangeably. So I may say scooter or bike, but I'm referring to both at the same time. Some learning objectives for tonight. By the end of the session, I hope you're able to understand a few of the basic statistics regarding scooter and helmet usage and the injuries related to accidents. Better understands the risks of people riding scooters without a helmet, and hopefully have some knowledge of the injuries that could be sustained by your kids when they don't wear a helmet. So quick quiz time. I'm going to take a minute or so for you to pull out your smartphones, scan the QR code, and on the next slide, we'll open a link to a chat to 5 true or false questions, and then we'll review those at the end and see how you did in what you learned throughout the presentation. So I'll just give you a second here, and then we'll watch a quick video.
Hi, do you want to go back to the QR code just in case, or
Sure.
yeah, just in case they didn't see it.
Yeah, I think I didn't give you enough time, guys.
And you can always screenshot it if you are on your phone and then go to that picture and you'll be able to click on the QR code and get in from there as well.
All right, so we can move over to the next slide.
Mm-hmm.
And don't worry, parents, if you weren't able to get that, like we're going to share this at the end, so you'll have access to those questions and the presentation, and you can take the quiz at a later time as well. So am I able to, I'll go ahead and take over for a second so I can show this video. This is a story that was on the local news recently about a young child who was hit by a car while riding her scooter to school.
Hi, I don't hear any sound on the video.
Oh, great. Okay, well, we're through it. So we can move back to our presentation here. So I will stop sharing and we can go back to the presentation. Okay. All right, so to talk about a couple of studies that have been done recently regarding scooter and bike accidents. In 2023, this study looked at orthopedic injuries caused by electric scooters. The big findings that they had were among all riders and scooters, only 5% were wearing a helmet. 7% of the injuries that happened required hospitalization. 20%, so 1 in 5, required surgery. And the most common injuries that occurred were wrist and ankle fractures. And you can see on the pie chart there that most commonly those were caused by falls, uneven ground, hitting a vehicle, loss of control, and loss of balance. Next slide, please. This study was done in 2024, injuries with electric versus regular foot-powered scooters. So you can see that injuries from e-scooters and bikes increased from 8,500 in 2017 up to 56,000 injuries in 2022. So in a 5-year period, there was that much of an increase. And helmet use on e-scooters and bike was less than on conventional bikes and scooters. So on both charts, you can see use of electric bikes and electric scooters went up at a pretty alarming rate, and the amount of injuries went up in conjunction with the amount of usage. Next slide. Some trends in head and neck injuries. Another study that was done in 2024, they looked at e-bike related head and neck injuries from 2009 to 2022. So a 13-year period, went from 3,000 up to almost 10,000 injuries. And that's just looking at head and neck injuries. So separate from that other study where we were looking at more bone, ankle, arm injuries. Helmet use can be particularly beneficial in mitigating or in reducing the head and neck injuries in this. So you can see on the charts here over those years from 2009 up to 2020, just the increase and the steep incline in the amount of injuries that occurred over that time. And then the chart on the right is for pedal bikes, and you can see that that number stayed fairly consistent throughout the study. And one more, in 2024, electric bikes are emerging as a public health hazard. So this was done by the American College of Surgeons, which is the organization that certifies trauma hospitals. They found that 30% of all e-bike related trauma occurs in patients under 18. So basically 1 in 4 out of 10 of the injuries that occur on e-bikes are kids under the age of 18. And you can see on the chart on the left, the bicycle injuries remained fairly consistent. And from 2018 to 2023, the e-bike crashes had a steep incline. And the reasons that they found for those injuries and crashes on e-bikes were particularly due to an unsafe speed, improper turn, and not giving the right of way to a vehicle. So another video that I wanted to show is a public safety announcement from the Consumer Safety Commission.
Okay, let me try to share the video and see if
Okay.
we have, better, okay.
If you push control and click on the link, it should pop up.
Okay. Okay, now we don't have the presentations here. Can you have audio?
I do not. That's okay. We can skip over it. When we send this out to the parents, they'll be able to watch the link, so that's okay.
Okay.
So we can go to the next slide, please.
Okay.
This video is a good one you can find on YouTube. It's a quick 30-second video, but it's nice to watch with your kids. It's designed for them to give them some tips about safe riding. Some recommendations from the Consumer Product Safety Commission. Before riding, we want the kids to check all the parts of their scooters and helmets for damage and make sure they're functioning correctly. So we want them to see and be seen by other vehicles on the road. So the use of lights, bells, try not to ride at night, use the crosswalks, and follow the rules of the road if you're operating as if you were operating a car. Try to tell your kids not to make sudden or unpredictable movements if they can. So if there are cars around, they don't have to react and they can give them proper space to go around them. Beware of obstacles, so cracks in the ground, uneven pavement, curbs, and just the edges of the sidewalks can all be problems. And the three biggest take homes that we have are one person per scooter. So the scooters are designed only for a single rider. So try to get your kids to only ride one person per scooter. Always wear a helmet, whether that's for a ride that's just to the neighbor's house or they're going a long way to school. It's always important to wear a helmet and have it properly fitted. And then another big one is no phones or earbuds while you're riding. So we want you to be focused on riding and being aware of what's around, being able to hear cars coming, being able to hear other scooters or pedestrians and communicate with them as needed. So cervical spine injuries is one of the biggest things that a helmet can help to reduce the injury. So a cervical spine injury is an injury to the bones of the neck. It can result in bending, rotation, or compression of the spinal cord. These result in a higher rate of disability and death. So if you have a spinal cord injury, the chances of a more catastrophic injury are higher. And kids especially are more likely to have these injuries because of the way they're built. Kids have a larger head and their necks are not, and neck muscles are not fully formed yet. So when they do fall and have an accident, they're more likely to have these injuries than adults. So how can cervical spine or neck injuries happen? The most common is a motor vehicle crash, sports injuries, and falls in young children. So when we talk about those motor vehicle collisions, that's what we're talking about. So not only in a car, but also on the scooters and the bikes. Symptoms of a neck injury. So neurologic changes, so numbness, tingling, weakness in movement, pain of the neck or spine, pain with movement of the neck or any other part of the body, restricted movement, so not being able to move as well as you would before, abnormal motor strength, so that's that weakness that we talk about, and that can happen anywhere, arms, legs, or in the neck, and muscle tightness. Next slide, please. Skull and brain injuries. So fractures, breaks in the bone in the skull, bleeding inside the brain or inside the skull in the brain, and then traumatic brain injuries. So concussions is what we're talking about there. Bruises to the brain and the brain tissue. By the numbers here. So approximately 1.7 million traumatic brain injuries occur every year. 3.8 million concussions occur annually. And the most common age groups are from 0 to 4 and 15 to 19. 0 to 4-year-olds because they're constantly falling and bumping into things. 15 to 19-year-olds because they are most commonly involved in these high-risk activities. Skull fractures are seen 20% of the time that there's a head and head injury. Most injuries are caused by falls or, again, motor vehicle accidents, which, again, while we're talking about the bikes and the scooters, and males are twice as likely to suffer a traumatic brain injury as a female. Some common causes of head injuries. So minor head injuries, a ground level fall. So someone who's standing on the ground and falls over, walking into a stationary object. So just walking and bumping your head, and a fall less than 3 feet. When the head injury becomes more serious is when you have a motor vehicle accident. So your scooters, your bikes, your car accidents, pedestrians or bikes struck by a motorized vehicle, a head struck by a high impact object like a baseball or something like that, and falls of more than 3 feet, especially in kids that are less than 2 years old. When we talk about skull fractures, we're talking about breaks to the bone that surrounds the brain, and those come in 3 different types. One is a linear, so a straight line break. Also a depressed fracture, so that means that part of the bone has pushed inward towards the brain and is putting pressure on the brain. And then a basilar skull fracture happens down at the base where the skull meets the neck, and it's the most severe of the skull fractures that we worry about. This is just a simple little a diagram of some types of bleeding that can happen within the brain and where those can occur. You don't necessarily have to worry about the terminology, but just notice that there are a lot of locations where the brain can be injured and bleed, and each one of those, because of the way the brain works, cause different deficits in neurologic function when they occur. So this is a big thing to protect your head and neck when you're riding and the kids are riding. So we're talking about traumatic brain injuries here. So a mild traumatic brain injury is a concussion. Most people and kids typically recover in 7 to 10 days, but it can be much longer. Everyone's different. I may have a concussion and the person next to me may have the exact same injury, but it may take me 3 times longer to recover simply because that's how my body is working. And you can get 1 or more symptoms present. So kids can get headaches, nausea, vomiting, unsteady gait, confusion, loss of memory, and a change in personality. Moderate brain injuries consist of about 10% of the traumatic brain injuries. These usually require some sort of imaging, and they're probably going to be admitted to the hospital for at least some period of observation. And then we move on and start talking about severe head injuries. So these are often multi-system. So not only is the head and brain injured, but there's something else in the body that's injured as well. Usually needs a multidisciplinary team and some sort of resuscitation to help with the treatment. And the overall treatment is dependent on what other injuries are present. So when we talk about those mild brain injuries, concussions, everybody thinks of football and different sports and head injuries, and we are talking about the same things, but those can occur everyday life by falling while riding a scooter and hitting your head. So again, that's those same symptoms: headache, nausea, vomiting, unsteady gait, confusion, loss of memory, and a change in personality. The big thing we worry about with a concussion is a repeated injury. So someone who goes back to a high-risk injury and injures their brain a second time, the effects of the concussions kind of build on each other, and they can be exponentially worse each time an injury happens if the injury is not allowed to heal completely the first time. And that's what we call post-concussive syndrome. This can happen several days to several months after the initial trauma, and you can see grogginess, irritability, sleep changes, trouble thinking clearly, headaches, vision problems, dizziness, nausea, vomiting. The right side of this slide is a little bit busy, but the big takeaway here is what this is showing us is the recovery and the treatment process for any individual who has a concussion. We start off in that red zone with brain rest, and it's basically 1 to 2 days out of school without screen times, no reading, and we really don't want the children concentrating on really anything if we can avoid it, because that stresses the brain, and we want those neurons and everything that were injured to start to heal properly. Once the headache starts to subside, we move into that orange zone and we start to integrate those activities back in, but at a very limited basis. And through the yellow, blue, and green zones is the same thing. We're slowly progressing over a couple of days or even a week each time to reintegrate them back into normal activities of daily living. And if it is a sport or a high risk activity, we would start to integrate those back in when we get up to those, yellow, blue, and green zones. The moral of that story there is it's a long process to recover from a head injury, and it requires a lot of effort from both the children and the parents, because we all know that we're all on our phones and screens a lot, and we have to limit those things in the recovery process. Another thing that can happen with head and neck injuries is facial trauma. So breaking of the nose. Sometimes those are required to go to the operating room, but we often can fix them with what's called a closed reduction. So making no incisions and reducing that fracture. And they often go undiagnosed. So you can have someone who falls, breaks their nose, but never has any issues with it. Dental injuries is a big one. So 25% of school-age children experience some sort of dental trauma that requires treatment. Orbital fractures. So the orbit is the bone that surrounds the eye, and those are more serious injuries that can happen. So you can have entrapment, which is where the eyeball or the nerves and blood vessels that supply the eye get stuck in the fracture line, and that can cause issues that require emergency surgery. They can get double vision, pain while looking up, and even paralysis of the eye muscles where the eye can't move. And then the other facial trauma we talk about is a jaw fracture. So this accounts for 1/3 of all facial fractures in kids. And complex fractures can require surgery, can require specialized treatment at a specialized center that may require transport and admission at a higher level of care. So this is an important flyer to note, and this is one that if you have a chance to take a screenshot is a good one, or you can see it when we send this presentation out. But this is how to properly fit your helmet on your child. So when the first step is you put the helmet on their head, you have them look up, and they should be able to see the bottom rim of the front of the helmet. So we don't want it popping up like that. There's a V in the strap, so we want to make sure that the V in the strap goes under their ears when it's buckled, and the strap should be a little bit tight but comfortable. And then the third thing is they should be able to open their mouth as wide as they can, and their helmet should, when they open their mouth, pull down and kind of give their head a hug. And that's how we know that the helmet is properly fitted. So let's review those quiz questions that we did at the beginning and see how you did. So we can click. Next slide, please. So true or false, 500,000 kids in the US are injured in bike accidents yearly with preventable, and most of those are preventable with helmets. True or false?
And I think people can drop, the answers in the chat. That way we can see how,
Perfect. So I'm seeing some truths. Yep. Next slide. And that is true. So each year in the United States, about 500,000 kids are seriously injured in bicycle accidents, and most of those injuries can be avoided with a helmet. Next question. It's safe to wear a baseball hat under your helmet while you're riding a bike. True or false?
Okay, use the chat and we're gonna see. Okay.
Good. I see some people saying false, and that's correct. So just like we just talked about on that diagram, the helmet should be fit directly onto the head with nothing underneath. A hoodie or any other things between the helmet and the head can cause improper fitting of the helmet. Next question. A helmet should sit low on the forehead and not tip backwards. True or false?
Please drop your answers in the chat. And I will, go to the answer.
Good, that is true. So always wear a helmet the right way to protect you and make sure it covers your forehead, but don't let it tip backwards. And always fasten that strap. That's one with my children that I have to argue with a lot. You should replace your helmet if it was hit in a crash or a fall.
A few seconds for people to drop the answer in the chat.
Good, that is true. So just like a car seat, if a helmet is affected and hit in any type of fall or crash, it needs to be replaced. And the last one, I believe, your helmet does not need to have a CPSC safety sticker inside. True or false? Does not need a sticker.
Okay, let's go and see what people,
Good. Everyone's acing our test here. So the Consumer Product Safety Commission certifies helmets for effectiveness. So it is important to look inside that helmet before you purchase it and make sure that it has that safety sticker in there. All right. So here's a few resources for you. So kidshealth.org is the public health website for Nemours Children's Health. There are lots of good resources in there. If you go to that website, there's lots of information, and it's geared for parents. There's a teen section, a kids section, and an educator section. So there's a lot of really good resources there for you to look at. There's a link there that will take you straight to the concussion portion of Nemours Kids Health. And then the email there at the bottom, flcommunityhealth@nemours.org, is where you can send in any questions that you may have for us after this presentation. If you need more information, if you need to know where you can get resources for getting a helmet for your kids, if that's an issue, send us those emails and we'll get you that information. So I want to reach out and say thank you to everyone, and we appreciate your time. We do want to open it up to some questions. So if you have questions, please type them in the chat. I have Noel and Dr. Polis here, and we can try and answer a few questions before you have those issues, or before we sign off.
Yes. Let's go and see what we have in the chat.
So the first question from Dr. Polis that I'm going to let him go ahead and answer himself is, what is the law about helmet use in Florida?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So if you're under the age of 16 and you are riding a bike or an electric scooter and or electric bike, then you are supposed to be wearing a helmet. Now, obviously, we are not seeing that enforced, but just so the parents know, you would be responsible for your child if your child is riding on the sidewalk or on the street on one of these electric bikes or electric scooters under the age of 16 and not wearing a helmet.
Okay, thank you. But we have one more question.
So the next question is, what about a non-electric scooter?
So anytime you're on a mobile vehicle, even if it's a non-electric scooter, you're supposed to be wearing a helmet.
We have more questions.
Any other questions out there in the chat? Have we seen an increase in accidents?
Yes, it's been a huge increase in accidents. It's almost exponential, the number, as Ty was nice enough to show on these charts. If everybody thinks about it, a lot of kids will use their helmets when they're riding bikes, and typically they ride 8 to 10 miles an hour. These scooters and some of these electric bikes go 28 miles an hour, and some of them are modified to go even faster. So here now you have children going 3 times the speed that they used to on a bike, and the incidence of using a helmet on electric vehicles is less than on a bike. And so I challenge all the people on this chat to please not only have your children wear helmets, if you can please talk to your neighbors and your friends and colleagues to have their children start wearing helmets. It's an alarming amount of injuries that we're seeing from these electric vehicles. And again, because they're going much faster than kids used to do on their own bikes.
So Kara had a question. It says, I see there are some OCS parent liaisons on here. How can we help you to spread awareness to the students and parents in your schools? So yesterday, the three of us went out to one of the local elementary schools here in Lake Nona to an after-school program. And we have a separate presentation that's geared towards the kids. It's not as wordy and a little more fun for them, but we're trying to get this message out to both parents and kids at the same time. So if there are if there is a way for us to be able to come out to your school and present to your after school program, your kids' summer camps, send us an email to that FL Community Health email, and we can schedule a time to come out and talk to your school.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Thank you to the New More, team. I think we will for sure share this information with our engagement liaisons, with other, team member that can, share this information, help, not just to the parents, to our student, be more aware of, all the danger or, the safety issue that may be caused don't wear a helmet. Thank you, Ty. Thank you, Dr. Paulus. Thank you, Noel, for your time and information. This was a great session. For those that maybe need more information, they, share their email and contact. If not, you can always email to Parent Academy at ocps.net, and we can, happy to share, this contact for you to, send their question. Thank you, people. Thank you, families, for, joining tonight. See you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Did I talk too fast? Call me.
Oh, you can't hear me.
Now I can. I'm just not sure if they're still recording. So let me call you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.